What's going on? We're going to let this thing play out for a second. Make sure that we're actually live. Right now, you guys are tuned in. Episode 9, Beyond the Beats, right here live. Swissbeatbox's official podcast. We're on week 9 already. Had a bunch of great guests so far, but we really stepped it up with this one. I'm very happy, very excited, because we got a guy from England that's going to be coming on, and I hope you guys are starting to tune in. If you are tuned in already, give it a thumbs up, leave a few comments. At the end of our talk, if you do have any questions for Reeps, make sure that you guys go and put it in the comments. Maddox will go ahead and read through that, find a few of the best comments, best questions, and I'll be able to ask them right to Reeps right away. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't like wasting time. Let's make the best of the time that we have, because we only have a little bit of it. This is episode 9, week 9. We got Harry Yef, a.k.a. Reeps One, a.k.a. Reeps 100, a.k.a. Yef, a.k.a. Sleeps One, a.k.a. Gingerbeard Man, a.k.a. the King of the Leprechauns due to height alone, a.k.a. MC Reaper. Now we're about to go and get into this right away. So ladies and gentlemen, Beyond the Beats, episode 9. We're coming at you live and direct. Ish. So right here live, what's going on, man? What's going on, Harry? How you doing?
Yo, what's going on? That was a crazy introduction. You have dug very deep. Some of those terms I didn't know were out there. So those are all indeed my name. So I'm very impressed.
Yes, well, we got to start off with a bang. We got to know. It's you. So right now, where are you? Where are you for the people that are watching around the world and tuned in?
Yeah, so I made it back to London before the lockdown kicked in. It meant that I was able to be near family, and I was supposed to be in America. And yeah, it was just such a huge shift. Everything managed to change and shift so quickly. So right now I'm based in London. I have a very elderly father who I'm making sure is cool. And right now I'm thinking about my voice, thinking about leveling up with in beatbox terms, and just coming up with big ideas. But yeah, London's always my home and my center.
It's good that you got home, because again, with everything that's going on, the last thing you want to be is stranded somewhere without friends and family. So it's good that you got back, and I'm happy that you took the time to come and talk to me and talk to the people of Swissbeatbox and everybody that's watching from around the world right now, man.
Yeah, and not everyone did get home. I know some people that got stuck, and in all different parts of the world, like parents getting stuck, like people who were stuck here in the UK. It's been very, very, it's a scary period at the beginning of this. Like it is still scary now for a number of reasons, even if you feel like maybe you've overcome, or you're somewhere which has been smart and been able to manage it. But it asks a lot of questions about why. How are we going to live the rest of our lives? What's important to us? Can we deal with being just with our own company? It's there's a lot to consider. So it's been a big period of processing.
100%. I even know that I see that our good friend, Mr. Ballsy, aka Patrick's been stuck in India the whole time, and he's got that beard going on that he just keeps on letting grow. So I wish him the best of luck too. If you're watching for some reason and you're out there, you got some signal there, Ballsy. Big shout outs to you, because
big up
Canada and the UK, much love. But man, I like to get into it, because again, I'm not sure how much time we have together, but I want to make the most of the time that we have. So let's have a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? So I'd like to start off by saying a good quote from you that I found that I thought was, there's two of them that I'm going to start off with, where you started and said, "Our voices are the most precious tools. As they grow, we grow." And I found that was very, I like that to go and start off on that note. And then in 2008 in Sweden, in a video, in an interview, you said that you want to be an innovator. You want to be someone that people think about the beatbox world differently because of. And I'd like to say that, in my opinion, you've smashed that. And in 2008, you had the forethought to go and put that out there in the ether, and it came back, and you've been putting in the work to go and make that happen. So congratulations, man. And again, before we even start off, just to go and say, I love you, man, and I'm very excited to go and see where your career is going, because I got to go and really look at your career from a stand back perspective over many hours, and looking at all the stuff you've done and trying to find every interview and everything just so I knew about you more. And you've done so much for our community. So ladies and gentlemen, make some noise one more time. Now, most times I go and start off by asking how you got started, but after reading some stuff, I wanted to go and just kind of tell your story for you, because I feel like you've been asked that question a billion times of, so how did you start? So it's you said that approximately starting in 2003 is when you really started beatboxing, but at 2 years old, your dad has videos of you sitting on his knee while he plays guitar, and you're making sounds along to it.
So crazy.
So you got some sounds that are already going to it, not necessarily beatboxing, but you're doing something along to it while your dad's playing. And then when you go on from that, you watch Michael Winslow in Police Academy, so you have an idea of this sound effect thing, and you're a hyperactive kid, and you got a lot of energy, and you got this thing now that you can always carry with you, and you're like, wait a second, maybe I'll start doing that. So you're walking down the street with your buddy, and you both start beatboxing that day. And as you guys start beatboxing, the next day, he didn't continue, but you did. And I was going to say, you said that you played trumpet, violin, drums, and you're always frustrated about the fact that you couldn't carry them with you. And with this beatbox thing, being able to practice with you all the time, it was just always with you wherever you went. And it's your friend that you're allowed to go and always practice and have that opportunity. So I was going to say, how did it feel to go and have that thing that would always be with you? Because I know I'll get into your drawing and your art after this, but have a thing that you can always do no matter where it is. How important was that for you as a child?
Well, like, man, again, I'll say, like, incredible investigatory searching. People won't realize, but there's a few little things that you said there that really shows like how much you've looked. But yeah, to answer your question, in simple terms, like it completely saved me. Like this idea that I can make something all the time. And I think sometimes, and I'm probably going to say this a lot of times in this podcast, in this conversation, that it can be a bit confusing, my journey, because I've gone left, right, up, down so many times. Like I don't settle for what's in front of me. I'm always looking for more. But one of the reasons that is when I realized I had this thing that was my voice, and what many of us know as like beatboxing is like making sounds, making music whenever we want. As someone that was growing up in quite like a difficult environment, and quite like a chaotic area, it was something that I could escape with all the time. And I found music quite young, and that's why at first I loved to play instruments, but my family didn't have enough money to pay the deposit so I could take the instruments home. So I wasn't like the other kids. I wasn't allowed to take like that back with me. So I was practicing with my voice and trying to remember things. And there was this mixture of thinking about like the instruments that I play. But then what I enjoyed more was the fact I could just think of anything. And it was the combination of my imagination and my voice. And it didn't matter how bad the situation was around me. I could make myself move, make myself dance, make myself think about music and create. And if you're in an environment where you don't have many things, like, man, that is such a crazy feeling to be able to make music anywhere, and no one can take it off you. Someone can't go, no, give me that, like take it away from you. It's just totally yours. So yes, there was the kind of ADD type thing, and there was the obvious things of like, wow, it impresses. It started to impress people eventually, but at first it kind of healed me. And when there was something bad going on, I had somewhere to go, somewhere to escape to, which was my voice. So I've always had this other connection with it, that whatever I'm doing with my beatbox or with my voice, it has to feel like it's healing me or it's pushing me somewhere, because that's kind of what it did when I first started. And I think that's why I explore so much, is I try not to see it in terms of one culture or one scene. It's just about, am I growing? Am I pushing myself? Does it feel good? So yeah, that's kind of the beginning of why it really, really meant something in terms of beatbox. Like,
and when you're talking about it in other interviews and stuff, one of the things that stuck out to me was the fact that you said that you could design your own instruments and you can design your own sounds. Even from the very beginning, when you first started, you had the idea that it's yours, the qualities of it you can go and produce, and you can go and find, just keep on chipping away until it's exactly the way you want it to. And I think reading into that in my just to listen, thinking read your conversation back and listen to it and think about it from a second. Maybe for someone that doesn't have a lot of control in their life in situations that they're in, to have that control and be able to mold it is a very important thing. And I know you've worked with many kids, and many people obviously look up to the way that you've gone and continued your beatboxing and crafted it. But how important was it to have that control in your life and be able to not only have that thing that you could do, but have that control and be able to be like, no, I can go and do it this way, and no one can tell me I can't do it that way, you know?
Man, I can't put into words how huge that was for me. Like the idea that I actually owned something, like it was mine, and the idea of not copying. I always hated copying. The idea that you have to always mimic someone or something. And yes, people inspire you, but like if like, for example, when I was growing up, my dad was he was amazing, like photorealist, like painter. But I'd always ask him, I'm like, you can already see that. Why would you paint it? Like, you want to make something that doesn't exist. And I think I had the same feeling from beatbox, where, yeah, you start off with a snare, but the fact you can add all of these variations onto it, it felt more like what my friends were doing with computers and making electronic music. This idea that you can shape anything, and like the goal was not to make a snare or a sound that already exists. It's like, what's your snare? Like, what's your sound? And eventually that really became such a huge thing in beatbox. And now it seems to be the main game. Is like, all right, who's got the original technique? Where before it was like, do a cover, like mimic something, and that was like beatbox. It's about like creation. So yeah, so that feeling to make something original, I like. It's just the biggest like feeling for me. It makes me a little bit emotional, like thinking about it. But
and again, you've pushed different sounds and created different sounds and taken sounds your own way, and that's something that I find very important. As you said, looking at the new generations of beatboxers coming up, where they can do a lip roll, but then the lip roll is this little bit different, and they add this sound on top of it and keep on putting different things together in the combinations. It's getting super crazy. I'm so excited to see where it goes, obviously. And speaking of inspirations, you said that Killa Kela and Kenny Muhammad were probably your two biggest inspirations once you started learning about beatboxing from the jump. Is those the two guys that you mentioned? And I know there's some other people.
Yeah, like in terms of their styles, because I always thought no one sounded like Kenny Muhammad. Like there was something different going on with the like what was in his sounds. Like sonically, I was always really attracted to it. And Killa Kela I love because he's been a pioneer and inventor from the beginning. Like even to this day, like you hear him do a snare, no one else does a snare that Killa Kela does. Like he has all of these sounds that are so original, and people get it twisted because he doesn't involve himself with the community and he's been outside of this world. But he's also a name that a lot of people kind of loosely know, which is a big part of it's almost like you meme the old school. They just become like a name, you know, but it's like, yeah, they're not really around me, or I'm not exposed to what they do too much, so I don't think about it too much. But he's such an innovator. But like, there was Michael Winslow. My dad did play me Bobby McFerrin a few times growing up, but I didn't have any conscious like awareness of it. But Razel, like everyone, like it was one of the first viral things ever, was that live clip of If Your Mother Only Knew. And I think people sometimes try and avoid talking about that because it's so common, but it's the combination of all those things together were a huge influence to me. Just the magic, and they seem to like be standout. But yeah, Razel's like first records and that clip was huge. But a bit when I really started developing my own style a little bit, I've always taken my hat off to people like Kenny Muhammad, and Killa Kela. Eventually Faith SFX was my idol for a while. So yeah, that was like the melting pot of Reeps. Beatbox wise, there's a lot of other things which maybe we'll talk about, but beatbox wise, like those are the people that I like really worshipped.
And I'm going to skip around in my notes that I had, but What was the feeling like? Because 2014 American Champs, you're on stage, and Michael Winslow's watching, and Rozell's watching, and Michael Winslow's throwing money at you because he doesn't know what to do. He's so impressed. And then you get in 2015, you get to go and do a showcase at the 10th anniversary of the UK Champs with Faith SFX. And you've got to go and have the documentary where you talk to Rozell. So a lot of people will go ahead and say that thing of work until those people that are your heroes are now your peers. And you've definitely accomplished that. But how was that feeling of basically being sitting there and getting Michael Winslow to throw money at you, or to have that thing where it's like, oh, we're going to go and find someone for Faith to jam with, and then you get to go and jam with him at the 10th year anniversary?
Scott, man, you're asking the big questions here. It's quite intense. I feel like this is going to, it's going to be a bit of a journey. Simply because, like, I guess what you said just then is it's been really, really strange to go from, like, for example, I had an argument with my dad when I was 16, when I was an angry teenager, because he told me that one day I'd meet Rozell. Like, I showed him a Rozell clip, and he's like, what? He's like, Harry, you're good. He's like, I think you can grow, which is quite rare in the beatbox world, is to have a supportive, in some way, a supportive, like, parent. But at the time, I was just like, you're just being an ignorant dad. You're just being positive. And I was very, like, rude about it. And he always remembered that. So to go from that and to develop something just to the point where I'm able to meet the people that I looked up to, and exactly as you said, the goal is to have, first off, have many idols. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't have to be beatbox. If you're passionate about something, having many idols is a really important idea, because it gives you all of these points of reference that you want to supersede. So that idea of having like 10, 15 people that you really feel why they're amazing, that does bleed into you. But if you can then make those people your friends or respect you, that's the next tier. So when I found myself in a position that the people that I idolized in any way started to acknowledge what I'm doing, it almost I didn't have the feeling of success. It was confusing at first. Especially the Rozell one, because the American Champs was almost a bit too much for me in the best way ever, because I went to America, I went to New York. There was amazing audio. It was such an amazing battle. It's when Napalm won his first national championships. He was special even back then. Kayla as well was incredible. But Rozell wasn't supposed to be judging. People don't know this. He just turned up. He just appeared. And he literally just sat down at the judges' table with me, BR, and Michael Winslow. So people don't know that, but he's just like, I'm judging this battle. But he said to me, he was like, man, yeah, I've come to see you. I've seen you since the beginning. Like, I'm here to to be at the event. And he was very positive. And to go from that young teenager who idolized someone to all of a sudden they're in front of you, it's not the feeling you'd expect. Like, it actually makes you think about, wow, oh my God, I've climbed my own small mountain here. Wait, hold on, could I have climbed a different mountain? Is this and it takes you internalize that feeling, and it makes you just want to push harder. Like, after you reach some kind of some goal, which may be, because everyone has different dreams, right? It's not the same for everybody. But it took me a long time to almost get over that moment of being with Michael Winslow, him being so positive, the person I saw growing up, and then Rozell and with BR as well, but literally sitting in between them. I was sat in between these two idols. I had all the good feeling, but when I left, there was a lot of thinking, wow, what does that mean? And what else can I achieve? And it gave me all this energy to push harder and think about, all right, they told me to greatness is about giving back, and the idea that you can influence other people and you can push something and be a part of a community. So I really took that on board and had this double life of being super happy about it, but then also oh my God, I have to level up more. I have to keep growing. I can't stop now. Oh my God. So yeah, meeting your idols is I warn everyone, it's not as simple as you think. It's not always a positive experience, but it's definitely something that can help you grow. So yeah, having as many idols as possible is great, as long as it leads to some lesson or learning.
And it's crazy to think that like Rozelle and is to be saying like, I've been watching you type thing, or he knows about you before you've even had it in your mind that you'd ever meet him. And now seeing Michael Winslow, he's doing some reaction videos to the Grand Beatbox battle where he's watching it and he's saying something along, even so intricate as being like, whoever's doing this sounds really good. And it's a shout out to Sinjo, you know, like having those guys look back. I think in our community, it's an interesting thing because it still is, it's growing rapidly, but still is relatively small to like something like, I don't know, hockey, or for me, it's Canadian hockey, but you know, like soccer. Sorry, let me bring that in there. But you know, it's still small enough where the biggest people know of the people coming up. And it's just crazy to think that they are watching it now and still trying to be right on the cutting edge of it. So when you meet them, they're not like kind of, who are you type of thing. They're like, oh, you're the guy from the UK. Nice to meet you. You did this and this. And then you're just sitting like, you know me? How'd that even happen? And
giving that space to like take a moment to check your privilege in some aspect in terms of where the culture comes from, because like, man, we owe those forefathers so much. And it's easy to kind of go, oh, well, they're not new school, or you put them in some kind of like old school box, but oh my God, do they have so many lessons for us. It's like a different approach with so much experience. And like, I'm pretty sure Rozelle won't mind me saying this, but like for me, one of the biggest things of when I was speaking, there was two things that really like stuck with me. The first was Rozelle. People forget that Rozelle was genre breaking. Like, he worked with Mike Patton to Bjork and was in the Roots. Like that, it doesn't, like, if you're a 15-year-old beatboxer and you're watching this, like any musician in the world, like that is such an achievement outside of beatboxing. But he was a beatboxer. He also put his kids through college, like a little bit more of a mature, like sort of thing. But it's not about them making money. It's about the fact if you can innovate and support the people around you, it's like, wow, that is like such a huge thing. The way that he the breadth of his experience and the way that he sees things. But there was a second thing, which I never expected, which really puts the new school, old school thing in perspective, was apparently Kenny Mohammed and Rozelle had been training together, and they've been working, and they had this attitude of like, we want to sound like a machine. Like we really want to think about the frequencies, and we want to think about listen to records and why does that drum sound the way it sounds, and try and get it like absolutely perfect. And you can hear it in both of them. They were the first as a tag team, in my opinion, to really transcend the human, that kind of whoa like moment. Like Kenny Mohammed sonically, maybe like in terms of the timbre of his snare and his sounds, and Rozelle with his composition and the way that he like puts things together and the original sounds. But they apparently sat down with Biz Markie, who is, for those that don't know, he's like he's still maybe the biggest beatboxer. Obviously, you have Dougie Fresh, but Biz Markie was alongside the similar sort of generation, but he was very much famous in the hip hop community, in the birth of the like pre it going global, was like respected and was like massively known, really, really popular artist. And he said to the guys, he's like, you guys don't sound human enough. He's like, the human beatbox is human. He's like, why sound like a machine? So when Rozelle was beatboxing at events, people were kind of like, why is he doing that? Why is he sounding like a machine? We have machines, because the human beatbox is the human beatbox. So you got to remember is that sometimes when you see someone like Rozelle or Kenny Mohammed and you think old school, they were the first new school, which I really see as like the first generation to go beyond the context of the human beatbox to really trying to be something more. We don't want to just be the human. We want to be more than human. So it's lessons like that, thoughts like that for me have been so huge in just terms of my respect. I give so much respect, and that goes both ways. So try not to put yourselves in boxes. Don't put yourself in the beatbox. That's always like one of my favorite phrases. But try to respect these guys. And I know that I went off on a tangent from the moment, like how it felt to be around those people. But that whole period when I was meeting all my mentors, it was like, these guys can still really teach me something. And every person I ever meet has a lesson. And that's really been big.
100%. That's the same. Like another guy on that list obviously is like Scratch, and hearing him and being like, wow, you actually sound like a record scratching. How did you figure that out? And it's just to see it in videos, just like anybody says, you watch a beatbox battle and you have people complain like, oh, this guy should have won, or whatever it is, or you see some video and you're like, that's not even that you think there's so much done to it. But seeing someone live and actually being right beside them and hearing it, the first time I ever saw a Scratch actually scratch in front of me and do it, I'm just like, I had to like lean in and be like, you got to be kidding me. That's not even like, how are you doing this? And it's just years and years of practice. So to have that forethought as Rozelle and Kenny to go and be like, no, we want to go sound like a machine and actually try to make it so it's so hard to discern between the two of them. That's like forward thinking at the max. And that's something that I hope the next generation continues to go and level up as they are.
Well, they are. They totally are. Like the new school, old school thing, you can't put a pin on it and be like, that's this. And like, I think some people think D-Lo is technically old school when it comes to like the cutting edge. Like if you think of, there are like attitudes of people that build on his style and people that really, they think that they understand him. Or like, obviously this is more traditionally old school now. People could claim that like me, Skiller, Dani, like yourself, like part of that first wave of 2009 like World Beatbox Championships. Like we are of a generation, and like we're 10 years the sort of senior of like the many of the new school. So there is this very interesting thing. It's quite hard to pin on it, but certain artists, certain beatboxers go in and out of waves of, are they still evolving in some way? Sometimes that transcends the beatbox. Sometimes it goes into a different part of their life. But just always check yourself. Just remember, there is a lesson in anyone. You could be the oldest school beatboxer or the newest school beatboxer. Making sure we keep bridging that gap is how we like make the culture the strongest it can be. Like that's something that I really believe in.
I love when the quote unquote legends come out and do a showcase, and like as a like literally watching Rozelle for the first time, I was such a little kid just being like, oh my God, it's Rozelle. You gotta be kidding me, he's doing it. So that's always a great thing. And it's, again, I love that our scene still has that availability at things like Grand Beatbox Battle, World Champs, all different battles where you get to go and meet people and be like, have a conversation with them afterwards type thing. It's always been a dope part about the beatbox scene. And the one thing also, like, for you to go and get to that level of respect, and you said it earlier, is the idea that you never want to really copy things and you always want to be original. And one thing that kind of stuck out when you were talking about that in one interview is that your father, who you mentioned a lot, he spoke about in the way that you draw, the negative space is as important as if you're looking at a hand. You're saying that the fingers and the negative space.
These questions. Sorry, you're like, yeah, sorry, you go for it.
Yeah, I got you. But the negative space, though, with space in between, is just as important as the finger itself. So when you hear some of your beats and the way that you approach beatboxing and the way that you do it, the way that you have silence or the way that you have different sounds in between the cuts of your beats, you can see that carry over and that carried into your originality. So it's just interesting to me that you can take a lesson. You've taken many lessons and applied it to beatboxing, but that lesson from your dad, I think, really for me has stuck out when I listened to some of your stuff back again, because I thoroughly did and tried to listen and be like, that's what he's talking about right there. Mm-hmm. And how, like, with that father figure, like your dad telling you these things, that obviously influenced you to go and think kind of outside that box and try to not just be like, okay, now I'm going to learn how to do the wind technique. Now I'm going to try to go and learn how to do this thing. You're like, okay, let me try to go and learn my own stuff and keep original. And that originality allowed you to go and do that whole thing we just talked about, where these guys come up to you afterwards and be like, whoa, that's like, you're awesome when we know about you.
Well, I guess it's there's another quote, which is common knowledge is no knowledge. And that's something, you don't have to agree with that, but it's definitely something that ideas like what my dad showed me when it came. I took an idea used in drawing, like a drawing technique, and that actually gave me a new concept in the way that I beatbox, that the silence can be as important as the sounds that I make, and the silence actually shapes the sounds in some ways. And I was like, oh wow, that's a new idea. It's not like one technique like a snare. It's actually a concept that can apply to everything. And I really enjoy trying to find that. And the idea of thinking outside the box, trying to have an experience or do something else apart from just the thing to make you think differently. That's what makes you original. So what's interesting is someone that's maybe the best at something and solely focuses on that means, yes, you've climbed a mountain, but being the best at something doesn't always mean you're the most original or you bring the newest idea. And I've always thought that I totally seek out being one of the best. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like some Zen master sitting on a mountain. I don't care about anything. I'm so competitive. I absolutely like love to push things, push myself like all the time. But you have to think about, all right, do I honestly in my heart, am I doing this just to learn something, just for a hobby? Which is totally cool. I just want to make some beats for my friends. Yeah. Or do you want to change the world? and it's kind of, and it sounds over the top, but I've always had this thing in my heart, which is like, even if I fail in some way, whatever I fall in love with, I want to like do it to a way that it has the most influence or has some lasting like impact. And yeah, it's so strange that came from just my dad being like, draw the negative space on like a technique. But again, like, lessons are everywhere, and making sure that you're doing other things outside of just the thing that you really, really love is great, because what it means is you might actually get an original thought. One of the problems with like the ancestry of a scene is when a scene spends too much time with itself, it starts to kind of get a bit weird. But from within, it's fine, because it's the scene, it's the culture, it's like, it's the lip roll, it's a inward bass, yeah. But you can forget that, oh my God, there's other ways of doing this, and it can start self-fulfilling itself into oblivion.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have to kind of think outside of the box, have people that think differently, just to keep that je ne sais quoi, that spice going. And that's with the culture itself. Like, there's two ways. There's within the culture itself, but then there's also, of course, like, for example, GBB last year, which was a life-changing event. Everybody go to GBB, get on that plane, come. There is not just beatbox, there's no event like it. And experiencing something like that will always create new culture. But the thing that really perpetuates it and keeps it growing is that thing from within, where people that really care about it are seeking new ideas and finding other ways to see it. So yeah, that's thinking laterally. Common knowledge is no knowledge.
Absolutely. And you speak of other things that are being able to go and focus on, to go and keep yourself very, very up to beat and try to go and try new things and have a break from it maybe. You've mentioned a couple times about having the triangle, which is your music, your chess, and then you have your art. Now, you have it, and you say that a lot of the time when you're really focusing on them, which you got to go and focus on, you only focus on two of them to give one of them a break. And when you come back to that, you can put the ideas from the other two into it. And you've said that creating a beat is much like when you create a drawing. If you were doing some of your, I think you said totem drawings, essentially, of making a pole of a drawing. So you'll start off with something like a face, and then you just keep adding to it, and maybe eventually a horn will lead into something else over here. And then down here is where it gets this way. And the same with the beat is you'll start with something, and you're going to see how it goes this way, and then you're going to go and see how it goes that way, and just flowing into different things. And that was like really interesting to think about too, because way back when in 2012, when I was at the UK Champs, and I ended up hanging out at your place, and we had an after party there, and it was really awesome. And
that was an after party.
Yeah, I got to lay in Reeps One's bed.
Yeah, it's exactly. It sounds like it was
exactly. Don't read into that as much as you want.
No, it was there's actually some really incredible photos of Paponi, Big Ben. I think Roby was there as well. A bunch of people from the UK champs just all like chilling in the house, and like a lot of people that were just in the audience just all came back, and it was like one of the best after parties like ever. It was a really, really great, great time. So it was just welcome the community into my house and have everyone there. I guess at some point we make that happen again, I hope.
Yeah, man, I would love that opportunity to come back and hang out. That was awesome. But from that, I ended up, you gave me like a little piece of art that I have framed, and I got it, I can have it on my wall and stuff. And it's funny because I look back at that photo, and you also said that you don't want it perfect, and your dad used to get frustrated with you because you'd have a thing and you just rip it for some reason, do a little tiny crinkle there because it was your art. You can do what you want with it essentially. So why do you got to go and try to keep it perfect? But that idea of looking at that piece that you gave me and seeing that, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's where he kind of started and went off in this tangent and actually goes around to the back and stuff. I'm like, I see how that actually, he's genuinely meaning that, no, you start here and you just get to see where it goes. So when creating these new beats and exploring it like that, if you parallel it with the way that you do art, is that something that that when you were starting, because again, you're a strong artist, and is that something that came to your mind when you started beatboxing immediately? Like, because you started doodling, you said, your dad gave you some stuff at 2 to 3 years old, gave you crayons, and you're just like doodling on the walls and stuff. But you took this idea and you go ahead and read it. Like, I guess that's just the way your mind would work for it, being like, take this idea and see where it goes. Yeah,
it's a hard question. All of these are hard questions, by the way. You're going super in. I'm going to keep saying that. I think because I actually drew before anything. So as you said, like I actually destroyed my house when I was like super young. Like the first time I got access to some of like these crayons that my dad had. My mum, I think it was like I'd only just started like moving around, like, and I as in like not just being a static like baby. I was just like towards a toddler. And my mom wasn't looking for like 5 minutes, and I'd managed to like draw like all over like the lower part of one of our walls. This idea that you can, it's not that you're just making it up as you go, but there's just something in you that comes out like relative to like what you did before. And I remember I did do these kind of scribble drawings. I would have been under 9, so it was like I was maybe towards 6 and 8, but just lots of like patterns that would sort of interlock, and I would like build it that way. So that was definitely there before beatboxing. And I always struggled. It wasn't just that I was against copying. I found it difficult. I found it very hard to like imitate something. But this idea that I can build on what I've done, like take something from my imagination, always was way more intuitive for me. It just made more sense. So that approach, like, I think I'm very high functioning in some things, but some of my weaknesses actually were the things that, like, not being very impatient, wanting to make stuff all the time, like always wanting to be stimulated, finding it hard to like copy things. As much as that affected like the way that I conduct my day to day, eventually that definitely would have sculpted my beatboxing and why that arose in my artwork. So you can still see that in a lot of my performances today, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. But I always have a plan, but I never have like a set plan. So I tend to know where I start in my show, and there's enough like thousands of hours of practice. That means like I would hope the best idea just comes to the surface, and then that's actually a set piece, and all the bits in between are totally made up. So it's pretty crazy just for you to talk about that concept in itself, like the totem drawings and in my performances, because it goes right from the beginning all the way till now. I still have that in me. And what's so good about that, I'll be quiet in a second because it's a lot of information, but I know this is a podcast, but still. What's really interesting is that if you do try that out as a performer, that you're not too set on your structure. What it means is you can really respond to the audience. So like BR came up to me after my French champs performance, which actually was like a huge moment for me, because I've dreamt since I was a kid to perform at the French champs, like even bigger than the World Beatbox Championships, as I wanted to go to the French champs. So when I finally performed, at the end of my showcase, I was doing the build up to move, which I always do. Yes, I know, but the build up to move, and I did the drop, but then I stopped, which I do sometimes. But the reason I stopped was because everyone was so into it, and Alexinho had started a mosh pit with his family. His like mum was in it and stuff. It was like it was such a crazy, all the best. Like, it was like a world-class judging panel, all the French beatbox community, like the highest beatbox IQ culture in the world. And I did this build-up, and I knew that if I stopped it now, I can just like reinforce that moment. So, because when I did the drop, like everyone was like going, was like really getting into it. But when I did that stop and kicked it back up again, that was when Alexinho really went in and created this like moment. So it was all set up for this huge like wall of death, like mosh pit with all the beatbox community, all the family. And if I was too rigid with my plan, like something like that won't happen. So you're able to stop and start, like talk to someone, say something. And those little bits of fluency is what makes an audience really connect with your show, because it shows that you're present, like you're in it. Whereas if you just do a routine set, it can be the best beatbox routine in the world. But when you're out in the general public, I was going to say the real world, but that's not the right thing to say. When you're out in the world and you're in front of 3,000 people who don't know about beatbox culture, it's those moments of humanity, a laugh lying on the ground, like stopping for a moment, just showing that you're so into it. You'll know this, Scott. Like, it's those tiny touches that make an audience really, really, really connect.
100%, and I do love seeing that in specifically our world. I love when someone takes the time not to go and necessarily stick to the plan and be so rigid in their performance, where it's just like, no, that's a hard thing about battles is, no, I got 90 seconds, I got to do it like this. Whereas you see some of the people that battle, they'll have their piece that they want to do in the round that can change because they have different pieces prepared, but it's that response to somebody, or that thing where it's working all of a sudden. For some reason, he's not looking, you tap his shoulder, he turns around. For some reason, there's just a moment there that you can build off of having it, or even that little ha, or whatever you're going to go and do in between. And those are some of the biggest moments in battles that are so not planned out, maybe not even intentional in the moment. It's just what you do because that's the natural reaction. So I love the idea of watching that free flow instead of being so structured in it, because it makes it. And again, it's also to say yes, to see something that's perfectly structured. It is brilliant, and it can be appreciated as well.
That can be amazing too. Like, totally, it's just that emotional connection that people can get. It can come from that little moment of chaos more often than maybe a set thing. And like, there's a saying in boxing which is like, the more you practice, the luckier you get. And what that means is that the more you really get something in your head, you're able to basically bend the rules more and like mess with things, and you're able to kind of manifest what you want. And that's one reason I think Dilo in GBB like smashed it the way that he did, was those little moments in battles where he was so prepared for any variation, and then on top of that he was still able to be spontaneous. That's what made him stand out. And it's the same thing, not totally sticking to the rules, watching your opponent, like watching the audience and responding. Like, that's what makes it alive. It's always going to be something different to just getting something out.
100%. I want to go move on to that third little pillar that you say in the triangle of your chess, because 14 years old, you're the Southern England chess champion. You ended up being very involved with chess, and something that you play with your father and you still play to this day, and it's still very important to you. So one thing I want to know, because some of the things that you've said about it, you said that it taught you the understanding your situation and how to make the best out of your situation. So if you're playing a game of chess and you lose X many pieces and you're in a tough spot, you have to learn how to go and get out of that spot. So that's something that you said you carried over to your beatboxing. And you also said another one that I really liked is saying, with every success, you dip yourself in brass. Mm-hmm. So that idea, I want you to go and explain that to people for them to think about it, because strengths and habits, you say, can create a prison for yourself. So can you explain that idea to people? Because I found that really interesting and something that I just want to know what is meant by that to you.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot in that, but the second quote, which is "with every success you dip yourself in brass," is actually, if I remember, it's a Kasparov quote, who's a chess player, and he was talking about chess there. But what it applies to everything, in the sense of, if you develop a style or a skill, or it could even be like you go deep into a profession, even though you're achieving in that profession or that thing, you are simultaneously succeeding, but you're putting walls up. You're making, eventually, if you're not thinking about it, it can become harder and harder to change your style, change your job, pick up a new skill. And that idea of, as you grow, you're dipping, you're getting these layers of like metal, brass, like putting around you, becoming stronger and stronger. The deeper you go, the harder it is to break that brass. So if you're aware of that, if you talk just about beatboxing, and this is a really important one actually, if you have a style that someone's known for, like you are known for, or a sound that you're known for using, just make sure you don't keep using it to the point that you don't develop some other branch in your style. You don't improve your weaknesses. You're always working to your strength, because that's what makes champions, is the guy that can or girl who can basically go above and beyond what the audience and the judges think that is their thing, because that's the expected. But in general, making sure that you are not just sticking to one lane, step away from battling. It's what made me step away from performing a certain way, and it threw me into being vulnerable and scared of going down these other routes. And it was scary at first. I'm like, what am I doing? What the hell is going on? I'm just trying to speak about things, or I'm trying to do more art. But the idea is everyone who I'd ever known knew me as a good beatboxer from the age of 14, and no one ever stopped me. It just kept growing all the way through, until maybe just after the American champs, which could be really connected to when I met Razel and met these idols, right? But yeah, making sure you don't just continue on the path that is expected of you is really, really key to growth. And yeah, I got that from chess. And like these days, chess just helps me think. Chess is a game, by the way. It just makes me think about my day to day, and like, am I being precise? Like, actually, you can make mistakes. So, sorry, Conrad just sent a message saying, yes. Yeah, it's like chess is a game. So beatbox memes. So yeah, it's having the triangle, which people still message me to this day, talking about the triangle of having a number of things that inspire you and push you. It's another way of breaking that mold, breaking those habits. Because yeah, habits are so dangerous, man. You got to pick up the right ones.
100%. And again, staying with being an innovator in all aspects of these things. I really want to know how it worked out, because you said at your ADO, which I'll get into in a bit, but you said that you made, instead of an 8x8 chessboard, you made a 15x15 chessboard. And I wanted to know, were games played on that, and how did that work? And also, was it like, how much, obviously it's a huge difference, but like, how did it work when someone actually played it? Like, did you watch a game? Did you play a game?
Yep.
I really want to know about that, because I saw the board and I was just like, how, like, you'd have to be thinking,
hey, why on earth would you make a chessboard like that? So when I started beatboxing less, I started thinking a lot more about some of these ideas and applying them to other things, because it was interesting to think about, okay, so if I've like been super obsessed with beatboxing for ages and now I'm going to try something new, like what can I then do to kind of have a fresh perspective on beatboxing, for example? And that was interesting in itself. When someone's an expert in something, how can you do something to give them a new experience? If you're a musician, you're spending every single day on a stage and you're like performing, eventually stages can become very similar, because it's still you in front of people. It doesn't matter if it's 3,000 or 300 or 30. 30 is a bit different. It's very intimate, which is always a great feeling. It's different. But 300, 3,000, same thing. I applied that idea. I was like, okay, so what do I care? I was like, oh yeah, chess. I was like, can I give an expert chess player the feeling of that they had when they first started? Something it makes it almost scary again. Because if you lose the fear in something, you can stop growing. Like the idea of, wow, it's like challenging, or I'm going outside my comfort zone. So I actually I designed that board. I had it in my exhibition, and it's so stressful playing it because it's so much information. And I actually invited international masters, so really, really strong chess players, to come and play on it. And I got the same response from all of them. They said, oh my God, that was stressful. My brain hurts, but it was so exciting. And the fact that they had to use their expertise in a new way. So the idea that something can be really stressful, really difficult, and different, but it still uses your skills. You're taking the skill and applying it in a new way. That's really stayed with me, and I've called that expert interruption. So the concept of interrupting experts so that they can have a new approach to what they're doing is actually really, really interesting. So that's applied to other projects like the Polyphonic Playground, which was like a structure that I made with Fashion Space Gallery.
Yes.
And, basically it's like imagine a MIDI trigger, but it's a giant wooden structure. It's got 62 buttons on it, and you can turn it into anything. You can plug it into Ableton, and people can basically play music by reaching. And it's the same idea. If you're a professional musician, you're used to moving a certain way. You're a looper, you always move a certain way. All of a sudden those sounds are across, and you have to jump. You have to access the expertise in a new way, and it forces you to think differently. So that's in my work to this day. Which applies to all the AI stuff, which maybe we'll talk about later or something like that.
We might talk about that project you just brought up too. I thought it was cool because the idea to go and basically have someone that might be having these structured pieces now to go and make that next note happen. Well, I got to go across the monkey bar and go down the slide to go and make this thing actually work, to go and trigger it, and maybe I'll make something brand new and feel like a kid again about it. So I really like that idea that you brought into that. And real quick, too, for the people that are watching, I just wanted to go and also bring up an idea of MC Reaper. MC Reaper. That was an original name that when you were starting beatboxing / hanging out with people that were producing music and rapping and doing stuff in your area, that was a name that you got. And then from there, as your graffiti artist, you're writing all the time, and you ended up having Reep, and you added an S, and then you get Reeps. Now, where did the one come in for you on that?
If there's another Reeps, they're Reeps 2 because I'm Reeps 1. It's
very well.
I would love to say something super smart, but I wanted to keep the name because the person because actually what was said first was actually Reeps, and then it became Reaper because I wanted to change it because I felt like it made more sense or something. How does that apply to like MC names? That's so ridiculous. But I ended up going back to Reeps because I really liked the letters, and I liked the person who said it was a big brother to me, is a big brother to me. And yeah, I tried to change it a bunch of times, but it just stuck. Like I couldn't kind of shake it. And yeah, it's odd that it still kind of works to this day. It's probably the most consistent sort of like general artistic thing ever. Is just that weird, strange name. But I this idea that I'm the Reaper of sounds, so I come and I collect sounds instead of souls. That was the idea. Is I kind of travel and take ideas and become more powerful was the original idea. But
get that Shang Sun going. Come here, give me.
Yeah, over here. The scorpion. So, but yeah. That was the idea of it, and I still love the name. It means so much to me. So like Yef and which is my surname, and Reeps, they're like two very strange words, but they've become a big part of my life.
100%. And one more before I get into your performing career, and I feel like we've been talking for a while already, but I like the idea that when asked what you did before beatboxing and what you had in your like what you did for work beforehand. You said you used to airbrush T-shirts at Camden Market, and then that led you to like going and painting walls at a very young age because you wanted to go and earn money for the family and go ahead and do these things. So again, having that, like, what did you see someone else doing that, or was that just an idea that came up to you where you're like, I'm going to go and try to make some money? Because then going forward to become a solo artist, become a solo beatboxer, to go and pursue an artistic thing and having to go and have a business sense, that must have been something that right off the bat kind of set you in that path of being like, okay, I need to go and buy the T-shirts, need to go and paint them. I sell them for this. That means I'm going to go and do it again or paint this person's room, you know?
Well, yeah, I used to not be proud of this because it would sometimes sound a bit strange, but like I've never had a normal job, and I've learned to be proud of that because I did actually have loads of jobs technically working like growing up, but there were things that I created for myself and I worked extremely hard in. And I did like bricklaying with my friend's dad, like when I was like at first, but I didn't get paid. So that was actually like a thing that like I get like dinner or something. It was just one of those things that when I left school, it ended up being like so an induction into like working life because they were like they were my best friend and the family, and I was a part of that. But I was sketching, and I always had like a weird belief in what I did. And when I was in school, I would draw on people's trainers and bags and get a bit of money for it. Like I would, like for a tenner, for £10, I would like sketch on someone's backpack. I remember once I did someone's bag and I spelt their name wrong, but then they it was cool. It's like little things like that. And because I'd been sketching so much, I walked past a shop in Camden, which was quite famous for like customization. They did like bits. I saw it here and there, and I don't know why. I just like walked in and I said like, can I have a job? Can I spray on these like T-shirts? And just once a week I'd go in and I'd just do some art. And eventually it wasn't really so much I was, I did the things he asked of me, but then I was using it and just like freestyling on top of these shirts, and he really like helped me. And it was only a few weeks. And I'd done a few people's bedrooms. I've been doing these trainers. I had a bit of experience there. So after that, I was just, word went round and I just started spray painting bedrooms and doing murals. And my dad's actually a sign writer. So he would, since I was a tiny kid, I'd watch him draw on walls. So he would do gold leaf and these really crazy, super articulate, hand painted fonts on glass and on walls. So I learned a bit from him on like etiquette. So that basically sustained me from the age of 15 to about 17. I was just making bits of cash here and there. And when I left college, I was beatboxing and I won the UK beatbox championships. And actually back then you'd win a car. So I won a car in the champs, and then when I went to pick up my prize, I then sold the car to the dealership. So I sold the car to the people that was giving me the prize, and that gave me my first bit of cash to like try and make this work. And that was kind of the journey of just trying to these strange, like just trying things, like believing, throwing myself into environments where I was really nervous. And beatboxing at the strangest events, like anything that I could get, I was there, like trying to perform. And one of the actual earliest parts of my career is I beatboxed a lot at like gospel church events and at YMCA. So there was a whole series where like I was the only like musician, and I just do these like beatbox interludes, and then it was like a training period. So all of that was like my sort of comeuppance where I was nervous, I was scared, like my friends loved my beatboxing, but anyone else, which many people out there might relate to, is like, why are you making those noises? Like, what does it mean? Why are you doing this? But I just didn't stop. I didn't know where it was going. I just didn't stop. And it kind of, all that eventually led up to the, to the UK champs.
And it's you talk about starting over performing and being able to go and do it instead of just being around what people did with beatboxing for people to rap over and doing it beatboxing, people like being like, whoa, you're kind of classmates and people, you know. But you said when it really hit for you was when your friend Ben started dancing in the corner and you got to see him and you're like, whoa, wait a second, he's moving to me. I'm making music, and you get that moment of realization that, okay, was that like definitely a point that you would say the idea to go and make someone move, not just be like, hey, that's cool, or like, man, that's awesome, but to actually make someone move consciously from or unconsciously, maybe even from hearing a beat and moving and responding to music.
Yeah, well, the goal of making people move is the ultimate connection. If you can make someone dance, they're not just in their head going, wow, that's cool, because that's very different. Making someone go, oh, that's sick, oh, wow, that's cool, that is not the same as actually making someone move their body and forget what they're listening to, making them forget themselves, like they're so inside of something. And that really is the goal. And if you're ever beatboxing and someone's rapping, always try to make sure, don't throw the rapper off, but try to make sure that sonically or musically it's so interesting that people stop listening to the rapper and they start listening to you. So it's a very fine line. I'm not saying like just change the rhythm and mess them up, but the idea was whenever I beatbox with my friends, I was always trying to be interesting enough that people were like, oh, wait, hold on, this kid, or like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. Because that happened a few times when I was growing up. Because beatboxing was a lot less, especially like grime, because that's where I came from, was like early grime, like dubstep and halftime garage. People would be like, hold on, wait a minute, like what the hell is this like little white kid doing? Like how the hell is like, where this Irish looking boy, where's he come from? And that was definitely the goal, like just that wow factor. So try to make people move.
Absolutely. And something you move on, you just start doing Secret Wars, which is a huge part from what I've seen. And you go up there, and the idea to go and be able to put your art graffiti battle together and be able to perform when you go up, and DJ Skunk gives you the microphone and you're allowed to go and perform because people are...
Oh my God, how the hell did you find this? That's so crazy.
I got... Take these things seriously.
So mad that I haven't thought about DJ Skunk in so. Do you know my routine? Touch it,
yeah,
touch it, bring it, babe. That came from one of his scratch routines, like back in the day. Touch it, bring it, babe. Watch it, the double. So yeah, that's so great. Sorry, continue. I'm so impressed. It's amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. But you
need to make sure Scott's getting some like lobster dinner after this or something. It's like, yeah, no one's gonna do this better.
I'm gonna try my best here, and it was very interesting to learn a lot more about my friends. But again, so you go up there, DJ Skunk. You didn't want to go on the microphone. Your friend goes and tells you to go and try and get on the mic. You grab the microphone and you start doing it. And then all of a sudden, boom! Now you're going to be able to tour with this thing, and you get the opportunity to go and start getting more shows because of it, and people see you. And you go ahead and you go to Dublin. You go to Dublin versus London. You go to what else did you do? You did a bunch of them with them throughout the entire time. You won the graffiti thing, the graffiti battle that happened in Southampton at the Soul Cellar. And then you still performed after that. So you're getting your name into the graffiti, the writing realm. The hip hop world is getting to know what beatboxing is again, and you get to go and share your art form. And I was going to ask, did this feeling of being able to go and have not only a performance in front of people, because you said you were already doing that at the YMCA and at church, but having hip hop heads and people that might be listening, as you said, to grime, dubstep, and having those influences more in the UK, but getting that exposure and be able to go and put out in front of them, and them being like, oh, okay, wait a second, and a guy like DJ Skunk, or who was the other guy, DJ Sobol, what's his name? Slowbodan?
Slowbodan. No, you're doing well before now.
No, we fell off. Anyways.
Oh, Slobodan. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, from Birmingham.
I'm back.
I'm so sorry. You totally reclaimed it. Yeah. So Slobs, we call him.
Well, but that opportunity to go and perform in front of peers and people that are in the realm of, again, hip-hop, electronic music, and getting their feedback from it. And as you maybe having that DJ Skunk being touch it, and being able to go and introduce that and have that, hearing that live, and then recreating it and making it your own. Was that like, what type of experience was that for you to not only write at the events, but then also be the beatboxer that you're becoming and growing and having that feedback from people?
Yeah, I was the beatboxer first. Like, so Terry at Monorex, so shout out to Terry. I always call him my uncle. He basically like let me jump up, and from them was just like, we want you to, you're part of like the team, like come and travel with us and do these shows, because Secret Walls was just growing then, so I was kind of part of the birth of Secret Walls. And yeah, I learned so much jumping on those stages, and just like show after show trying to, because it was only ever like maybe max 15 minutes I ever did, but that was enough training to understand like what makes a crowd go wow, and like how I can bring other influences in. And yeah, you're totally right, Scott, because previously it was quite like local, or I was like a beatbox star, and like I was trying to make it happen. I was going into environments which were quite strange, where this was where I really started to have experiences and experience and traveling. Like I remember the first time I went to Switzerland, and I was looking at all the graph, and I was thinking, oh, I wonder where ZD is. Because that was before because like ZD was another like idol of mine. Like I really respected him, what he was doing. So like those trips and seeing the world and getting these musical experiences was a huge level up for me. Then I started battling in the art as well, always trying to maybe do a bit of everything, and being a part of that culture, I'm so proud of that. So yeah, if you search like Secret Walls now, they still do epic stuff, like based in LA. I still do stuff with them. They're always pushing like the live art like format, and Terry's now doing some great stuff. He's built this amazing team. He's always supporting people. So yeah, it's a really interesting journey. But I was such a little kid back then. Like the idea of, like, I remember I did a performance in Amsterdam at Melkweg. It was like just before Redman, and there's actually I did a little bit, and there was a guy in the crowd who, he was some kind of national champion, but he basically challenged me to a battle. It was like a movie, because it was like Melkweg's like the biggest venue in Amsterdam, and this video is online somewhere. It's like so old school. My style is so hip hop. It's like hip hop, like early techno, like dubstep, and yeah, he knew the promoter who like ran the venue. So after he saw me beatbox, he's like, I want to chat. But what was funny was, the thing I did was literally just a tiny bit of beatbox to introduce the names of the artists. So it was like, you know, like that was it. So he didn't know like how I beatboxed.
What was coming.
Yeah, what was coming, basically. So he had the balls to kind of step up and be like, oh, this is like this is because he did a little bit of like house, and it was quite like I'm talking about respecting the old school, and I was about to kind of make a negative comment, but that experience of like having that battle, the audience went mental, and I like totally like so everything I'd learned up to that point, like been touring and just like all these lessons and like leveling up and trying to like innovate and grow. And then I had this guy kind of come up. That's when I was like, all right, I think I should maybe battle him more. And that was the beginning. Obviously I left battling, but that was the very start. All right, maybe I should try and do some stuff and do some bits. And I've got some pretty crazy like battle stories and stuff, which it's connected to Secret Wars. Do you mind if I just say one more?
No, I'm loving this, man. I'm talk, brother.
Hopefully I'm still making sense. But it's something that's just quite a great story. So I mentioned the first time I won the UK champs, which wasn't the first time I entered. Like I was actually in the finals the year before. Zany beat me.
Zany beat you, yeah, 2008.
Yeah, and that was like my induction. But I got through because they have like regionals. So it's a bit different to some of the battles these days. They would have like, I think 4 regionals across the UK, and you had to kind of do well in a regional to be allowed to enter the battle. And when I got through to the final, which was at a later date, I got invited with Secret Walls to go to New York and beatbox at the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, where they were going to do like a battle when I was going to speak. So I actually decided I wasn't going to go to the UK champs, and I told Terry, I'm like, no, this is quite a big opportunity, and I think like this is great. So luckily it wasn't the only thing we were doing. So with Terry, I did a bunch of other events, and I had like a really strange like party at Mark Echo's.
Yeah, you did Mono Rex versus Echo.
Yeah, boom, wow. That was a really odd night, which I won't go into. It was fun, but it was strange. Yeah, so then it was like the day, like 2 days before the UK champs, and I was sat in the apartment like with Terry and like the rest of the team, and I was just, I obviously had like an aura coming off me because I was really quiet, and Terry was like, "You're right," and I'm like, "I think I should go and battle." It's like, I think I should go, and he was like, "Do you mean that? Like, you really believe that you should go?" Because if I left and went all that way, like missed the festival and lost, it was quite like a big thing. But I could tell he was like super serious. He's like, do you really want to go back? I was like, yeah, I think I do. He's like, cool, I'm going to get you a flight back. And he let me come home. He paid for me to actually come back. But what was really crazy, he literally bought the flight, and it was like the last flight I could get in time, and I just left like immediately. So he bought the flight maybe 3 hours before I was getting on the damn thing. So when I turned up to the airport, sometimes when you buy a flight, if it's through a third party, it takes a little bit of time for the money. So even if you bought the ticket, the physical digital money has not been transferred. So when I was checking in, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, the money hasn't come through yet. You're going to have to wait for a new flight." And I was like, I don't even have enough money to get back to where I was. And it's like, I really need to I need to get on this flight. They were like, "Oh, well, you can do some work. You could work here." And I was like, I don't have time to do this. So they brought over this manager. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Like, you're gonna have to like either go home, wait for a new flight, or you can do something now over the next 4 hours that can earn a bit of money, and it's a deposit." Blah blah. I was like, if you don't let me get on this flight, it could change my life, is what I said to him. And he paused for a moment. He let me on the flight. I made it home. I got changed. Had one shower, got changed, went straight back out, and managed to win the UK Championships. And that was it was like. Yeah, but it's totally a true story, and I think it was that momentum that made it like really, really special. And so if you can feel it in your gut. If you have a feeling like that, it can be anything. You should go for it. It's better to take that risk than the other way around.
100%. And the first battle, the first UK champs you won, you were in the finals against beatbox at the end, and then moving forward, the second battle you ended up beating Hobbit in the finals. And it's crazy just the amount of talent in the UK. And what I wanted to go and ask, because when you first started getting into the beatbox scene, I guess the beatbox scene, as it were, I found videos 2007 of BoxCon in the open mic, and kind of a shy Reeps One walks up to the microphone and says, "Yeah, I'm from East London, yeah," and just kind of doing your thing. Yeah. And then you can see the energy coming in. But it was like really interesting to me to see kind of you getting into that scene and opening up. And I want to know, again, East London or wherever you might have found people, when did you start actually meeting other beatboxers?
It was I was so nervous because that was the first time, was at the 2007 BoxCon. The first beatbox I ever met was Experimental. So Miles, so he calls himself XP now. He basically, oh wait. Oh, no, yes, it was. So it's actually a really cool story, which isn't too long, just because no one gave a crap about my beatboxing. Like, everyone ignored me. I was just the fodder. I was so nervous, but I was super excited. So when I actually jumped up, I was supposed to be like 45th, like on, but because I was so excited, like Pavan from Foreign Beggars, who's the host, who I didn't know at the time, who I eventually ended up performing with, he was like, he read the first name, so he was like, Zarb 9, and no one stood up. And I was like, oh, I'll jump up. Like, I made such an error I just wanted to jump up on the stage. So when I jumped up, the sound wasn't right, like things were strange. I was really nervous. Like, you know what it's like, Scott. After 100%. The first thing is so intense, but I had no experience. I didn't know that. I just wanted to like get involved. So I did something. Like, I used to do a routine. I had a swear word in it, and mid-routine I saw there were a bunch of kids, so I kind of tried to censor myself, and it didn't quite work, and like little things like that. So I had a great time, but when I came off stage, guess who I sat next to? It's all right, Skiller. So 2007. So Skiller was maybe the second beatboxer I ever met, which is super crazy. And so we were jamming together, and he was like still super like fast, like crazy techniques, but so quiet, and I was like loud, like powerful sounds. So I loved the fact that like we've had this journey until now together, that he was one of the first beatboxers I ever met. So yeah, that event was incredible. But at the very end, there was a circle. It was like Roxaloops, Beardy Man, Marv, I think Firebrise, and Hobbit, and they were all in this circle. And I was trying to sort of get involved, but no, everyone was talking, and like no one was sort of listening. So I never like got my way in. And I remember thinking, I'm like, one day you guys are going to listen to me beatbox. That was like, that was one of my thoughts. So yeah, super shy, like really, again, this thing that was always mine and on my own, which I think many beatboxers out there will feel. It's like, you're the only one in your area. You're the only one in your town. Like you're the sort of the anomaly. And then when all of a sudden everyone else doing it, it's pretty overwhelming. It's such a crazy, crazy bond and feeling. It's, yeah, there's some extra level to beatbox culture, definitely.
I 100% agree. And then from 2007 to 2008, you go into the UK champs. You end up second against MC Zany. Big shout out to Zany, of course. And then you get a special invite from Bilo to go to the world champs. And I'm not sure which one came before. Was the Swissbeatbox convention in St. Gallen before or after the world champs? I was trying to figure that out. I have a feeling like it was after, but I'm not sure.
It's a good question. That whole period's a bit of a blur because it's kind of like Poponi and his mum just making like meetups happen, and Bilo came over, and so I was about to say Pilo. Poponi and Bilo obviously are two huge figures in the culture. Obviously there's many thoughts and stories around that. But Poponi from the very beginning has been like pushing the culture and pushing me. There's a lot, like he's been a friend and a supporter, and from the very beginning, when I first met him, like Matt, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, he had and still does have the purest goal for pushing the culture and how much he loves beatbox. And so that there was like an event, there's that famous beatbox video, which is me, Beastie, Slizzer, and Skiller in Poponi's bathroom. So it's around that period. So the most of those like hangouts definitely happened before the world champs. So maybe it was before.
Maybe it was before, but again, though. So let's say we fast forward to 2009. By 2008, you're already in the UK scene. You're growing the UK scene family, and people are recognizing you because obviously you come second. And they're all great guys. And from what I've met, you know, I've never met someone that I don't like that was from the UK in the beatbox scene. But yeah, so you're going into that, and then 2009, where you go to that convention where you see all these champions from around the world. How did that exactly, like? I guess by then you're starting to get more knowledge about the scene and trying to like look up who's that and doing that thing. But to go and meet like, you know, you meet like Kumart and Skiller again, and you go and see Poponi's there and telling you to come on back, and he has this convention, the Beatbox Showdown goes down, and you get this opportunity to meet all these international champions before going to the World Championships or slightly afterwards. But that first international meetup, let's say 2009, is where you start meeting like the huge extended family and getting that opportunity to see it.
Yeah, so that, do you know what? I think you're maybe right that it would have been before, because I remember the first time I met ZD, because I was so like starstruck. And I remember him getting out the car and I was like, what? No way. I'm like, ZD's here. Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, just to be able to kind of have this bond and it feel like maybe we're part of something, like there is this extended family and everyone's got their own thing going on. And like, I remember the first time I heard Beastie, I was like, wow, like such an amazing, like unique beatboxer. And what that did is it just set the bar in a different way. And it made me just work so much harder. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to stand out, I need to keep growing, keep leveling up, keep pushing. But to feel like I was a part of a family of some kind, a community, when I'd just been traveling around that did something I did. I I'd made friends, I'd been a part of things, and I had like this thing growing. But for it to extend on like a global level was just like, oh my God, what is this? What is this thing that we're making? And the fact that those people are still friends to this day that's like 10 plus years now, which is insane. Like I've known you, Scott, for over 10 years.
Wow.
It's when you see it in those terms, it's absolutely huge. So those bonds that you make are no joke. It's a real, like people that don't understand or parents can make their comments, but when you travel to one of these events and you realize that this community is beyond the screen, it's a serious bond. And yeah, I felt that from the very beginning.
And so you go into the World Championships and you end up facing ZD, this guy that you say is your hero, and you get to go and be like, whoa, I'm on stage. And he ends up taking the World Championship home to Switzerland and becomes the world champ. But one thing that you've said that you brought out of that whole thing was taking the dubstep and taking your style of that UK flow and exposing a whole huge audience to it and bringing that music into them. And moving forward in your career, as you start going and doing more festivals and start going and doing stuff like Glastonbury and all these and all these different festivals, it's like people started recognizing you in the beatbox scene as that guy who's going to be pioneering this idea and this style of music. But then being able to go and share that music with somebody who's never even heard of it, let's say, and it's like, oh, I know hip hop, and then you're like, no, listen to this. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, wait a second here, and they get this whole new style of music that you expose to them. I feel like that's something that's definitely like set you apart in a career where, again, people can go and watch somebody and be impressed or be moved by it and all these things, but to go and actually have a whole new idea of a whole genre or multiple genres brought to them and then maybe explore it on their own and looking guys up from that scene and get to become fans of that. That must it's just an interesting feeling. That must be like, okay, I've got to expose this to so many people off of that battle. Yeah,
I think that's just why my style hit different, because there was like that genre was booming. But when I actually battled in 2009, the routines I did made a large number of people listen to dubstep. So it was the fact that I was the gateway for a whole new genre of music for a lot of people. Like I still get messages from, say, like Indonesia. So like big up to the Indonesian family. They started listening to that sound because of like my routines and the things that I did. And that's a very different thing to like wanting to just, I don't know, liking like one routine or a song or a style. So I think it was that, like, plus also to this day, I'm still so shocked that that interview from the World Champs went so viral, which is me just saying how much I love beatboxing, which I know like really like kickstarted a lot of like the beatboxers we know today, and which I'm so proud of. But yeah, the idea to not just make someone go, oh, sick, but to contribute an idea or something that actually influences the rest of their music taste or their life. I'm always super honored when anyone says something I've done in some way has made them think a bit differently or shown them something new. And I think that's still the goal to this day, except like I've maybe grown a bit and changed a bit.
Absolutely. And I want to fast forward a little bit more, because you had a bunch of battles. You did a bunch of battling, from the UK champs to the world champs to 2010 DMC world champs, where you battled Eklips.
Oh, yeah. The only man to ever battle Eklips. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how'd that even come up? Because they're doing the DMCs. It's obviously turntablism. They want to go and bring in a beatbox element to it. But like, I never saw Eklips battle until then. I remember seeing that. I was just like, literally be like waiting, like, oh yeah, this video's coming out. These guys battle. It's gonna be sick.
Actually really fun. That was probably one of my favorite all-time battles, because, like, first of all, can I say that to everyone I beat, everyone I lost to over that journey, like I absolutely loved it. Like it was never fully like maybe my place, like in terms of like that competition and the format of it. But I learned so much from it, and I loved how it made people feel. And yeah, I'm super honored to have been a part of battle culture. But the Eklips one was a bit different, because he was such a legend. Again, another person that I really looked up to, because Eklips has always been different, man. He the way that he sounds and his control and the way that he can smash a show. Like, he's a powerful beatboxer, but for some reason he agreed to battle me, which I took as just a massive compliment. You know, like when it's like a prize fighter and they take on like a new fight or something, like just because I don't know, they want to kind of flex. But what was so interesting about that was there was no sort of announced winner. But I think even to this day, if you can prove me wrong, if you go through the comments, it's so 50-50. So people that like the new school at that time, like different approach or like the Reeps One energy, it's like, it's kind of all that you'd expect, which is like, oh, like Reeps is more innovative, he's more electronic. I prefer his style, it's new. But everyone that prefers the more classic, like the hip hop energy and maybe slightly older heads, it's like all like Eklips. So it's really, really even. And for that I just saw that as like a perfect battle. It was like two styles that would never come together any other way, like battling at an event like that. And yeah, I was still such like a young pup, was like taking on like Eklips, who was this like sort of tried and tested like master. So it was good training.
Absolutely. And you can even hear it in the crowd from that video, and just the both of them are amazed at both different aspects of it, where you do start doing something and you're all of a sudden like, no more covers, and you start going into your style, and then all of a sudden he's like, I like covers, and he goes back into it, cutting back and forth. It was such an awesome video, and that was one that always stuck out to me from watching your career, and like being like, whoa, this guy's got to go and battle Eklips. Who gets to go and do that? That's amazing, man.
Yeah,
big ups to Eklips. Yeah, man, I got a bunch of notes, but I've seen that I'm gonna move it a little bit forward, because you know, can't be sitting here for 7 hours doing this. You probably got to go and like live your life. But one thing I do want to go and ask though is, you go ahead from battling, you end up third in the world. You battle Skiller of all people, so you battle your one of the heroes, ZD, and then you end up against Skiller in the next world championships, and back and forth you go, and that's a tight battle, one that and you go ahead and bring your own style that really shone through, and then you get that rematch 2017 at the SBX camp. I was gonna say years later, like how many years is that? That'd be like 4 years later or whatever it would be, that you get to go and rebattle Skiller, get that rematch, and bringing both elements of it and seeing how your styles have brought to different things and remixing it. Like, how cool of an experience was that for you to go and be able to be like, you get to battle your buddy on stage, but you get to go and kind of relive that moment and show where styles have gone?
It was a really cool concept. I think it was Paponi and Dani that came up with that, because the idea was we were gonna kind of half copy our old routines, but sort of like update them. But yeah, the main thing was just how much, like by that point, Skiller, he was my brother before, but I think we'd been through so much, and he's like became a part of my journey, and like he so deserved the to win that battle. Like he really, really, really wanted it and came with some absolute fire. And there's something about that, like you just look at the comment section, there's something about that battle which just puts it in like the Hall of Fame of battles in some respect, because it was two very different styles. Also, like, we're good friends, and then to kind of get to go through it again and just sort of like mimic ourselves, but then collaborate at the end. That's what I thought was great, is we had the battle again, and then we go straight into the battle. And I think that's gotten over 1 million views now on that battle. So yeah, it was odd, because I think it's the only, like, since it's the only space I've been where it kind of feels like I might be battling again. Just, it was like a flashback. It's like, oh, I'm back here again. Because I thought before, I'm like, am I actually going to switch up my second round and go like super in and like turn it into like actually use the opportunity to like level up? But it was a dance between us, and we had all these great people in the audience. I think Napalm is putting these like incredible faces like he does in the front row. So yeah, repeating history is always great, and who knows? Like, I do think maybe the way the culture's going, there might be some more battles in the future. Like, everyone's kind of evolving again, and yeah, it's I'm not going to say anything, but there could be some more interesting things that happen like that in future.
But people better stay tuned. Absolutely, battles are dope. Gotta go and love seeing them happen, even if it's eventually going to come to that collaborative part, which is probably the most fun, is to watch two guys just kind of go all of a sudden put the hands together, and you guys kind of get that Goku and you know, like Dragon Ball Z, get that fusion going. It was awesome. But so you went through the battling, you've been doing it, you've been a judge, you get to go and to different countries to go and showcase and then judge, and the reaction at them from seeing 2011 when you went to Bulgaria, the absolute craziness that the crowd was, and going to China and going to do the Asian champs and Japanese champs and all these things that you've done. Stepping away from the beatbox scene, where you started focusing on your solo show and continuously moving that forward. I was saying that you were in the EDM festival scene, essentially doing stuff like Glastonbury, Shambhala, Up Festival, Bestival, Outlook, Tomorrowland, Boomtown, Playground. I can keep going with that for a long time because you've done a lot of them.
Or like 400 plus shows, like festivals and events.
No big deal. And having moments like you start, as you said before, you start working with Foreign Beggars. You get to go and open for The Prodigy. You tour with Captain Crunch. You go to do all these different shows, and you also, another crazy tour that I saw videos from is you work with DJ Qbert, Jazz Cafe in London.
Yeah, we actually did a whole tour together.
Yeah, Sydney, New Zealand, the Bass Bazaar tour.
Yeah,
that stuff was nuts.
Where I met Gary for the first time was when I performed in, and Eto Man. They were both in Sydney, so I still remember them turning up to the show, which is like, just for the beatboxers out there that know Gail and Eto Man, that's fun little fact. But yeah, traveling with Cuba was wild.
But I wanted to bring it to a point of you once after one of these festival shows, you befriend a guy named, I think, Josh from Staple Records, I think was his name, or something along these lines. I might be getting the record name incorrectly, but he asked you to go and perform. And you say, I'm going to do this half an hour set. And he says, no, I'm not going to pay you X many dollars to do this half an hour set. You got to be able to go and hold an hour. And you said you worked on this concept and worked on how to go and fill an hour and keep it interesting and keep your energy up while you're doing it. And then at Razzmatazz in Barcelona with DJ Yoda, you said that's the moment that you kind of had that thing where you got off the stage, but they still were trying to go and tell you to do more and get that encore after doing a full hour of it. And having them being not necessarily beatbox heads, but being kind of just that, what was it, just this techno kind of style. But then they still were like, we want more, we want more, we want more. So how do you figure out to keep the energy up for people that are watching, that are beatboxers specifically, and any entertainment and or DJ? What is it about a hour-long set to go and say, or longer? Because you can do a 15-minute, as you said, where it's just routine and stuff in between, but it's short. But then if you have an hour-long thing to go and fill, and you want people to go and be with you and dance, and you said you got to a point now where you don't even introduce your name, you don't even say that you're coming on, you just go in right into it as the DJ comes off, and you're just continuing it up, and it takes people a while to figure out, wait a minute, he's actually beatboxing. Such a crazy concept to me, man.
Yeah, well, okay, there's so much you just said. The main thing, the idea of having an hour show is so important, just because what it does is it just means that you're bringing, that's almost like the industry standard of what a show is. And as soon as you start doing 1 hour, whatever it is, you just end up having more of a moment in a night. But of course, it's much, much harder. You have to give a different kind of energy. The kind of ownership you need to kind of radiate is a very different thing to jumping up, being a side act, being a bit entertaining, doing a showcase, and okay, now let's go back to, because that's the thing I did, now let's go back to the show. It was no, I am going to be the show. That is going to happen. And at first I thought I was crazy, but it worked. It meant that I got booked as an artist, which is helpful. It meant that I was able to get onto stages and do events and things that were previously impossible for a solo beatboxer to get on. And I also just had more influences and more thought went into my shows, because the goal it wasn't just at Razzmatazz. I realized that when I got it right, what you want to do is you want to smash it so hard that the act after you has to wait, because the crowd is cheering so hard for the fact that they want more. And that is possible as a solo beatboxer. The thing that you have to do is make people connect to your journey and your story. It's not enough just to do well. They have to just a little bit really feel and see into what it is you're giving them. Because if you get it right, a beatboxer can give someone that a DJ never can. And because it's so human and it's so in the moment, that when that actually connects with like, hold on, wait a minute, this guy has been speaking music to us for the past hour. It's literally coming out of his body. It can become more of like a ceremony. And like me, if I'm like sweating and I'm like, my eyes have changed and I'm just like so like into it, people stop thinking in terms of anything. They're just like waiting for that energy to come, and they're with you. So to be able to create that, of course, it would be great to just have perfect sound all the time. But myself and Lyndon J put a lot of time and energy into thinking, all right, how can I sonically sound as good as a DJ? What is the optimum setup? And being super smart with it so that I can just get back to beatboxing and not have some idiot at the other side of the room take away like the music of what I'm doing. Because when you have a bad engineer or you have bad sound, it's not just frequencies. They're taking away the music that you have, because the same idea, when you're with yourself, the frequencies that you feel and hear are, they're just not going to connect in the same way. So you have to do the work to make sure you have the right setup. And there's so many like shows where that's been really important, because if a person doesn't know, they won't be able to give you what you need to really like take them on that hour journey. So working out ways to just get optimum sound is the first step. And then you can start writing and composing that hour show. Like, I'm not saying don't do it, but just be ready. If you try and do an hour show, you need to make sure that you've thought about like the production and the sound. Otherwise the idea might not connect.
100%. I got to see that when you came to Toronto and do Bestival, and you smashed it here. So it was cool to go and watch you in your element and just kind of be sitting there and being like, that's my friend.
Yeah.
He's crushing the show right now. This is awesome. I have a genuine question, because I just want to know how long do you have right now? How long can you talk for? I just want to make sure that, because like,
yeah. So I'd say maybe about 30 minutes from now. Are you cool with that?
All right. Would you be a game to possibly do a round 2 of this at some point? Because there's so many pages of stuff.
Well, it's only if the audience are interested in that. Like, I think that's the main thing. Like, if the God in the clouds Paponi allows it, because I think it makes sense, man. Like, just how much you've gone in, I think a part 2 talking about the history. Like, I love it. Like, you're so on it. But I think the things that come after this are quite, I'm going to use the word like complicated, and I don't mean that in a boring way, but there's things I've learned that I would love the community to maybe understand. So giving some more time to that would be awesome. And maybe I'll save my showcase for that one, if that's cool. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, we could set up something nice, because I'll sit here for, I'll get through some more of my, I have a few more questions that we can get through in half an hour. But I just genuinely like realized, I kind of just looked at the time. This is the first time I've ever done this in one of these podcasts, is to look at the time and realize I am not even close to half. That's like 4 pages out of 14 type thing. You gotta
okay, yeah. So
you got a lot of stuff to get through, because we're not even gonna go and get into some of the crazy work that you've been doing recently, and some of the ideas and innovations that you've been pushing into. But okay, back to the conversation. I'm just gonna check in, and we'll figure that out at the end.
Yeah, we'll do a point 2.
I want to continue on the history though, because one thing that really like blew my mind though is catching the videos that I've seen of you doing the African Express shows, where it's like where you had 40 African and Western artists come together to do a 7-city tour, pop-up shows in Scotland and all different places, but being on stage and actually being able to work with Paul McCartney and being able to work with John Paul Jones and being able to work with Damon Albarn and having all these guys who are absolute legends, and being like, yeah, so here's beatboxing, and they actually responded so positively to it. Can you just explain that concept? Like that, I know I ask a lot of questions because I try to go and figure it out, but like I couldn't even imagine being like, oh, so you're in the Beatles, you say? Wow.
Yeah, well, so Africa Express was the craziest musical week of my life so far. But can I quickly say, a bit previously, I called an engineer being an idiot for not knowing. That isn't what I meant. what I was referring to is some experiences where an engineer has just assumed and just done something that is on any level maybe a bit ignorant, like keeping a high pass on, or just completely cutting my sound, just like really. But a lot of engineers, like if you go and communicate to them, you go tell them what you want, they can do an amazing job. So yeah, we need sound engineers. We need engineers in general. Also, yes, like the lighting as well. Always ask for good lighting. That's a really, really important one if you have the option. But yeah, sorry, Africa Express. I got invited by a guy called Stephen Budd after doing a Sofar Sounds, and I ended up being on a train with Damon Albarn, who's an incredible musician, and maybe like 20 to 30 other musicians, some from the Western world, and a bunch of like mind-blowing artists like Baba Mao from Africa. And it was in association with the Olympics. But I ended up being with like Kasabian. It was like the instrumentalist from Gorillaz, because like Damon Albarn is Gorillaz, the Libertines, and there were a number of artists like on the train. But what I didn't know is more artists were going to join along the journey. So I don't know, some of you might have heard of a band called Led Zeppelin. So the story I'm going to tell you now was the day that I collaborated with Led Zeppelin, which is something I never thought I'd say. So on Africa Express, I turned up at King's Cross. It was like bloody Harry Potter. I turned up at King's Cross station, and there was a train waiting, and there was all this press and media. And I got on the train, and the middle carriage was a rehearsal carriage. There was a whole like studio in the middle of the train, and the train was drove to 6 different cities around the UK. And what we had to do was, as we were driving to the city, we all had to just work out songs. So all these professional musicians had to just like collaborate. Western musicians collaborating with the African musicians had to come up with reinterpretations, like new ideas. So when we eventually, I think it was like the 3rd show, we arrived in Bristol, which is one of my favorite cities in the UK. They said, okay, yeah, Reeps, we're going to send you to do like one of the sub shows before the big show. So they would send like unique groups of artists, so like 3 or 4, to like a small location, and we do a small show before the main one. And I'd done a couple before, but this one, they sent me off on my own. They're like, oh no, Reeps, someone's joining the train. So we've actually set it up for you two to like do a thing together. So they sent me to this like venue. I like jumped up, like did like a solo performance. Everyone was like, what the hell's going on? Like, wow. And then just as I finished, like John Paul Jones, the bassist from Led Zeppelin, just gets on. He's like, do you want to have a jam? So I was like, yes, because my dad's a fan, and I was aware of, like I was in shock. So he's super curious. So we have this like jam back and forth, and I've got this amazing photo of us like sort of performing together. And then on the way back, he was like, yeah, it's very interesting. I know that this exists, but I've not seen it quite like the way you do it. Like, what is this? And we actually like had a vocal jam together. So he's going doom doom dum doom doom, and I'm like, so that musical moment is an absolute like just astonishing experience. But it didn't stop there. So after that, like Massive Attack joined like for the performance. We had Paul McCartney eventually joined, and like Kano, who's like a UK like grime artist. And basically the list goes on, but it was this mad collection of musicians. But what was so great is they hadn't heard like newer beatboxing ever, especially like all of the African musicians. Like Baba Mao was like, you're dangerous, I've never heard something like this before, I want to bring you to Mali, like this is crazy. So without like forget all of like me having this great experience and this amazing story, what was so interesting was these astonishing like world traveled like pioneering musician had never heard beatboxing, and that still exists to this day. If you can get a skilled beatboxer in the right place in the right room, people still go, wow, I didn't know this was a thing, I didn't know, after all of this time. So if you see an opportunity or something comes your way, just don't be afraid to go go for it, because there's a large chance they've never seen like anything like that. And because of that experience, I'm able to kind of I learned a lot of lessons, and I'm still connected. I've got other stories, but I'm not going to go into it now. We're short on time. But that lesson of like, wow, if I can just get over this fence or get into this room, I can maybe show them something they've never seen before. And that's like stuck with me to this day.
And it's crazy to see that first reaction that someone has to beatboxing that is not knowledgeable in seeing so many different beatboxers at such a high level, but being able to be actually you as their first one. I can't go 0 to 100 real quick, and all of a sudden they're just like, oh, so that's beatboxing, and they get like a really thorough experience of it, and it's not just, you know, someone who's just starting out to go and push it. But you had mentioned too that the idea behind 303,000 people, not a lot changes necessarily, other than you can get more energy from the crowd. So obviously, if you have a 3,000, 10,000 people in front of you, you're going to go a little crazier and might try to push it harder. But the last thing before I get into two little sections, I just want to go and ask you is about Sofar Sounds, because
yes,
right there, the idea, and you've said it's very interesting to go and have that eye contact without a microphone and having to perform in front of people, or not having to rather, but getting the chance to go and put that experience there where you have a small room of people that they can hear the sound when it comes from your mouth directly, and you don't have the interference of a microphone or cables in between to go and change anything. It's directly what you hear if you're practicing. So how important has Sofar Sounds been to you, and that experience changed the way you perform?
Yeah, so that's another thing I'm quite proud of, is I think I was the first beatboxer to do a Sofar Sounds, which now is it's like a gateway into performance for a lot of, or an opportunity to get a direct connection to an audience. The great thing is a lot of those performers are, a lot of those performances are so intimate, it's terrifying. Like people at that normal stages, the fact that you can't hide behind anything and it's totally acoustic. A lot of people say, oh, I always thought beatboxing depended on the microphone. Like, oh, I thought there was some kind of like magic or trick. But if you are in a city, wherever you are right now, search to see if there is a Sofar Sounds in your area and get your asses to perform at one, because it's such an amazing experience, and it's done so much for creating content and sharing like new artists. So me, like if I'm traveling somewhere, if I've got a main show, I will always do a Sofar Sounds, just because it gives you an access to new people, and it's a whole new way of testing your style and seeing if you can stand up against other musicians that are maybe more traditional. So yeah, those Sofar Sound performances are there's a bunch on YouTube. I don't even know how many videos there are now. There's maybe like 5 or 6 different performances of me at Sofar Sounds, but I must have done over 10, and it's like everywhere, like South by Southwest in Austin, in Texas. I've done like Milan, I've done LA, I've done Berlin, I've done Barcelona, New York a bunch of times, and London a bunch of times. Anyway, blah blah blah. The point is it's a way for you to access something new. So 100% go for it, and you can try new things out and push yourself.
100%. I'd like to see that in person too, because I know that the Beatbox House has been doing them in New York, so they've been doing theirs, and I've seen more beatboxers get that opportunity and take that opportunity maybe for something that they wouldn't have known about until you've done it first. So that's a bit of your history. Now, I know I didn't hit everything, and we are not going to go into the crazy long other pages that I have, where I'd really like to go and talk to you about some of your work you're doing currently with universities, with some of your innovations that you're making in the virtual world, in your sound, that the connecting the two that you've had, because you always talked about connecting the sound and the visual together to have this show, and some of the amazing things that you've done. I have so many questions about it, but right now I want to go and switch things up a little bit, and we're going to get into a part called Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire questions. All right? Rapid Fire. So
wow,
what this is
angry lip roll in there. Jeez.
That is an angry lip roll, correct. So real quick, I'm going to ask you like just a handful of questions, and I just want you to not think about it too much. Try to answer as quickly as you can. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm so bad at these things. Yeah, go.
Rapid fire. And they even have the clocks out and put some extra pressure on you. First question. Do you still hate shorts?
Yes.
Does breakfast, nipples, cheese, and lemons still work as a good sound check?
Yes.
Do you think you could win a battle against a lyrebird?
Yes.
Do you think you could win? Do you think you could win the rematch if they had time to practice?
No, it would level up. It would beat me.
Is a cheese sandwich the best sandwich ever?
Yes.
What is your favorite Street Fighter character?
Blanca.
Do you still feel like you've left your head in the land of yesterday every now and then?
Yes.
What is your favorite Jelly Belly flavor?
Jelly Belly. Raspberry. Strawberry.
Are you still considering getting a parrot?
Yes, I would love a parrot. Yes.
What level did you achieve in karate?
Oh, I got to blue belt, which was like it was like the 6th belt or something.
And now we'll get into some more general ones. Favorite solo beatboxer currently?
I'm gonna say Dilo and Trung Bao.
Favorite tag team currently?
Uni teams. I love.
Favorite loop station artist currently?
I'm gonna say I see so much potential in Frosty, so I'm gonna give that to him. Just like in terms of excitement.
When do you think that you'll become the actual king of the leprechauns?
Well, it's a secret, but like there was a secret ceremony a few weeks ago, but I'm not allowed to announce anything yet.
Rapid fire. Those are rapid fire questions.
That's so.
Oh man, I hope you've had a good time with me, man. Have you had a good time?
So yeah, man. I've absolutely loved it, and I'm so up for a round 2, man. I hope that's cool. I hope that's cool with everyone, and yeah,
absolutely. Because the only other thing I have is there's a few questions I have here. We got Paponi's sending me messages. People are sending me messages to ask you questions. But the last thing I'll ask are questions from our audience because they sat and watched and listened to this conversation. They really want to know. So I'll ask you the top 3 questions we have. And if you guys are watching, you have more questions. Reep says he's down. Ari, you say you're down. We'll do this a second time. And we'll try to go and figure out a time that works. So ladies and gentlemen, we got questions right now from the audience. All right. First off is, which is the weirdest sound you have learned so far?
Oh, I think maybe it doesn't sound that great yet, but I think I thought about this before, but now there's this whole like duck sound revolution going on. Is so using it, so like throwing, like starting to find the modulation between those two sounds. I really, really love. And the silver bass that I've always done, the chest bass, and at the same time, I've started to find more ways to throw that into beats and using it inwards as well. Using that for inward bass has been like really, really cool. So no way, I'll say that next time. But there's a couple new inward drag like modulations that I'm starting to get more control of how to throw sounds in that I wouldn't be able to do. And like, even though like the inward drag is such a kind of, I'm always talking about it, I do think it's always evolving. And like inward bass, inward drag is something new as well, which is interesting. But you know, when you're learning a sound or a pattern, it doesn't quite click. And there's that moment that it makes sense. So I really enjoy that.
I like the story behind the inward drag, how it got its name too. You're sitting with Lyndon, and you just ask you as he writes out your beat. He's like, "What do you want to call that?" And you're like, "Inward drag." And then all of a sudden, now it's classic. Now it's a classic.
100% coined that term. Like I've got this like horrible. It's a horrible feeling that even after I die, that might be something that like stays on in beatbox culture, which I'm sure it will continue. Is that pattern? It's just the inward drag.
Well, again, watching that when that first video came out, where you're in Paponi's, the parents like, in the swim place.
No, but back then it was just wait. Which is so fun. It's so slow. So just
yeah. And now you've put that so fast that you actually have the fastest recorded diaphragm around the world wide. So that's
and also I always see people on a sort of, because I say that in my lectures and they're like, oh, but this person can do this and this person can do that. Like
recorded. Sorry.
Yeah, obviously, like I'm never interested in trying to just bolster something up, but it's just this idea that I was literally in the lab with like a breath belt on me, and in terms of like recorded normal use, it's definitely by far the fastest they've ever experienced. But I will put some money on that, like at my peak performance, I would put my current inward drag in with anyone. So maybe that's a future battle at some point.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
I like that. And one last question from our audience. How did Rave Monster become a thing for you?
It's funny that video, because I saw that as just like another show at the time. I didn't really think much of it. But the reason that's such a cool video is it shows 45 minutes uninterrupted of me just solo beatboxing in a club. Like I headlined a club in Cyprus and everyone's going crazy. And it's just me basically freestyling for like, I did an hour, but I think I did over an hour, but there's just this like 45-minute section. But there was actually a different Andreas who really believed in beatboxing, based in Cyprus, really good guy, great supporter of the culture. Yeah, brought me out to headline like an electronic event that he'd been putting on. He'd been a fan for a while. So that video is always interesting because a lot of people tell me that was the first time they've seen beatboxing kind of take that shape and a performance for that long as a solo beatboxer. So yeah, that's why that happened. It was just another booking for me at the time. It was just me to go out and do a show and just perform in a club. And like, I wouldn't say it's like the best beatboxing by my standards now, but it's an interesting video to watch because it shows you it can be done, and maybe just believe in it a bit more. If you commit and you have a big enough energy, you can actually perform for that long and make people have a great time. Like everyone was so happy at the end of it. There was no like, oh, when's the act coming? They were like, this is the headliner. Like, yes, like let's go. So yeah, that's the goal.
Man, it's dope video. I remember seeing that back too and watching the whole thing and being like, yep, my boy's killing it. This is sick. Well, man, you know what? Talk for 2 hours here. I've had a really good time with you, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on this show.
You're such a legend, man. You're a friend. I have all the time in the world for you, and you're an amazing host, and you're an amazing interviewer. Like, again, I've been about. You're so consistent, and the way you host GBB is just like inhuman. Like the way that you remember, you're so consistent with on every level. So it's an honor to sit down and chat with you, man. Like it's. Yeah, and it's an honor for, obviously, I love like Andreas. I'm so respectful for the rest of the Swissbeatbox team for being a part of the journey. But yeah, we can definitely sit down and have that chat. It's an absolute pleasure, man. Because
again, if you guys stick around and check out more of these episodes, round 2 with Reeps is going to be very intense because I went in deep. I went in deep, and not just even the stuff that you talked about. Because you know when you like listen to someone and they talk and you don't understand a word. That happens to me, and if I don't understand a word, I go and look it up. Now, same with the concept. If you don't understand the concept, you look it up to go and be able to talk about it at a somewhat par level of somebody. So I'm excited to go and have another conversation about all the things you are doing currently and the things that you have to come, and I'm very excited to have this conversation.
The reason I'm so grateful for that as well, because it's so strange, my journey. I'm not surprised that sometimes like my older fans get confused by where I am now. It's because I didn't even know I was going to be like where I am now. But I'm so proud of that. And when I left battling, I didn't stop battling. Like I've been through so many battles, like outside of the culture. Like I've been through so many challenges, and the results of it are very peculiar and unique. So the chance to kind of talk about the concepts and to go that like step further about like literally trying to maybe change the world a little bit. It's good to maybe separate that to the history, but the main thing is people enjoy it. Like, and there may be something inspires someone. That's the goal.
100%. Because yeah, I wouldn't want to cut that short. And I realized, kind of looking at the time, I'm like, we're gonna be closing in, even not getting through a performance, not getting through a couple other little sections that I have in this show, and I want to make sure that you got to spend the right amount of time to go and talk something through fully. Because if I were to start that up, it'd be ridiculous to go and stop not even halfway through and be like, all right, well, you guys figure it out. So
well, maybe next time as well, we can actually have more of a form. Like I can set something up for a performance and make it like a thing. Because I'm due a video on Swissbeatbox, definitely.
Yeah, and I hear that you have some video that might be coming up from a recent showcase, but it's coming out soon, I hear. So there's some stuff coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I'm gonna press play right here because a little dance, go like this. Jeez. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you sat right here, Beyond the Beats, episode 9. First installment with Reeps. The conversation is not done, but to go and give it the just attention it deserves, we're going to go and do an episode 2 with him at some point. So thank you guys for checking it out. Leave a comment, give a thumbs up, subscribe to Swissbeatbox. Big shout outs to Maddox, big shout outs to Papuni, big shout outs to Sinjo, shout outs to everybody involved. Huge shout outs to Reeps One, Reeps 100. Make sure you go check him out online, all that good stuff. But more importantly, go check out, I think, a lot of his talks that have been coming out so then you can prepare yourself to be involved in the conversation next time right here on Beyond the Beats. Harry, love you, brother. Ish.